but I think they will understand me without knowledge the Portuguese language, because it's very clear what I am going to speak about. Okay?
Now, good morning from São Paulo. Good afternoon and good evening, everyone worldwide. It's a huge pleasure to open the session of the consular representatives in the 5th BRICS conference of BRICS from the University of São Paulo. And I also take the opportunity to highlight the huge support of our partners, Embassy of India in Brasilia, Embassy of China in Brasilia, Lidi China, International Relations Commission of OAB, BRICS Youth Energy Agency of Russia, Forum for Global Studies of India, and the South African BRICS Youth Association, SABIA, and CIARB Brazil, and all the logistical and technical support of IBRA China. Thank you so much. And it's for this panel, it's an honor to welcome here today Dr. Peijie, Consul General of China in São Paulo, Mr. Yuri Lezgintsev, Consul General of Russia in São Paulo, Mr. Amit Kumar Mishra, Consul General of India, and Mrs. Tinyiko Kumalo, Consul General of South Africa in São Paulo. Thank you all for accepting our invitation for this very special session. And to the opening of this panel, I would like now to invite Mr. Yuri Lezgintsev, Consul General of Russia in São Paulo, for your statement. Please welcome, Consul General, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you very much. So I shall continue in Portuguese. Neste ano, a Índia é presidente do BRICS. Pelo tanto, quero começar o meu discurso recordando a prezada audiência as prioridades correntes. Ante todo, é aniversário de 15 anos. 15 anos, sob lema de continuidade, consolidação e consenso. Como objetivos prioritários, foram destacados a reforma do sistema multilateral de governança, cooperação antiterrorista, uso de métodos digitais e tecnológicas para atingir os objetivos de desenvolvimento sustentável, fortalecimento dos contatos humanitários e culturais. O primeiro-ministro da Índia, Sr. Modi, falando na cúpula, enfatizou que o BRICS estabeleceu instituições poderosas, como o novo Banco de Desenvolvimento, pool de reservas cambiais nacionais e uma plataforma de cooperação em energia. Os temas escolhidos para este ano demonstram exatamente essas prioridades. Fortalecer a cooperação do BRICS na base da continuidade, consolidação e consenso. Este ano, apesar dos desafios colocados pelo coronavírus, foram realizadas mais de 150 reuniões do BRICS, 20 delas ministeriais. Junto com a cooperação em áreas tradicionais, também foi ampliada a agenda do BRICS. Em particular, pela primeira vez, foi realizada a cúpula digital, uma reunião sobre questões digitais, na qual foi discutido o que é possível alcançar com a ajuda das tecnologias contemporâneas. Além disso, os peritos e ministros que lidam com recursos hídricos se reunirão em novembro. Pela primeira vez, o BRICS assumiu uma posição coletiva sobre o fortalecimento e a reforma do sistema multilateral. Também foi adotado plano de ação para combater o terrorismo. Chegou-se a acordo sobre a constelação de satélites de sensoriamento remoto dos países do BRICS. Assim, foi aberta uma nova página de cooperação. Foi destacado que os membros dos BRICS cooperamos no domínio das questões aduaneiras. Também chegamos a consenso sobre a criação de centro de vacinas. Também estamos lançando uma iniciativa de tecnologia limpa e verde. O presidente da Rússia, senhor Vladimir Putin, na sua vez, ressaltou que é muito perceptível que a autoridade do BRICS, de fato, está a aumentar, e o seu papel nos assuntos internacionais está a ampliar. Esse é resultado lógico do fato de que, ao longo de 15 anos de atividades conjuntas, os BRICS conseguiram estabelecer uma interação efetiva em todo o espectro de temas de agenda global e regional. Essa parceria estreita dos países é exigida, visto que a situação no mundo continua extremamente turbulenta. Os riscos associados à pandemia do coronavírus são óbvios para todos. Essa ameaça afetou quase todos os aspectos da nossa vida, desacelerando o desenvolvimento da economia global e agravando muitos problemas sociais. Junto com isso, a situação no mundo em si não está se tornando menos tensa. A segurança global está passando por testes sérios. O sistema de estabilidade estratégica está visivelmente degradado. Os conflitos regionais de longa data não param, mas também se agravam com renovado vigor. A retirada dos americanos e seus aliados do Afeganistão levou ao surgimento de uma nova situação da crise, e ainda não está claro como tudo isso afetará a segurança regional e global. Por isso, é bastante justo que nossos países prestem atenção especial a isso. Naturalmente, a Rússia, assim como seus parceiros do BRICS, tem defendido sistematicamente o estabelecimento de tão esperada paz e estabilidade em solo afegão. Os habitantes deste país lutam há muitas décadas e conquistaram o direito de determinar de forma independente como será seu Estado. Como se vê, o presidente prestou muita atenção aos assuntos internacionais e ao papel do BRICS nelas. Agora quero alegar nos trechos mais importantes da declaração da última cúpula. Por ocasião do 15º aniversário do BRICS, foi retirado o compromisso com o aprimoramento da cooperação entre os BRICS sob os 3 pilares: política e segurança, economia e finanças, cultura e intercâmbios interpersonais. É de saudar a assinatura de acordo de cooperação para a constelação de satélites de sensoriamento remoto do BRICS, a finalização do acordo de assistência mútua administrativa em matéria aduaneira de BRICS, entre outros. Outro tema que não podemos evitar a discutir nesses tempos é desafios de saúde global em Covid-19. Enfatizamos que a comunidade internacional tem a responsabilidade coletiva de trabalhar em conjunto contra a pandemia Covid-19 no verdadeiro espírito de parceria dentro das estruturas internacionais existentes, incluindo o OMS. Notamos que a cooperação no estudo das origens do SARS é aspecto importante de luta contra a pandemia do Covid. Reconhecendo que a produção de vacinas contra a Covid oferece a maior esperança de vencer a pandemia e que a imunização extensiva contra a Covid-19 é bem público global, lamentamos a flagrante desigualdade no acesso a vacinas, especialmente para as populações mais pobres e vulneráveis do mundo. Reconhecemos, portanto, a importância de vacinas seguras, eficazes, acessíveis e econômicas. Reafirmamos nosso forte compromisso de levar adiante nossos esforços contínuos para apoiar países ao redor do mundo no combate à pandemia, por meio de financiamento, doação, produção local e facilitação da exportação de vacinas, tratamentos, diagnósticos e outros equipamentos que podem salvar vidas, e saudamos a contribuição feita por países do BRICS no fornecimento de mais de 1 bilhão de doses de vacinas contra a Covid-19, incluindo subsídios e doações para organizações internacionais e para as instalações de acesso global de vacinas de Covid-19, COVAX. Muito importante também é a cooperação em paz, segurança e no combate ao terrorismo. Observamos que o BRICS tem continuado seu diálogo ativo sobre questões atuais de paz e segurança em mecanismos relevantes. Saudamos os resultados da reunião de altos representantes de segurança do BRICS e os congratulamos por suas discussões significativas sobre contra-terrorismo, segurança, no uso das tecnologias de informação e comunicação, ameaças à segurança global, regional e nacional, perspectivas de cooperação entre as agências de aplicação da lei e perspectivas de cooperação entre os Estados-membros do BRICS em questões de segurança na saúde e assistência médica. Saudamos também sua decisão de adotar o plano de ação para a implementação da estratégia contra o terrorismo do BRICS. Reafirmamos nosso compromisso com a promoção de um ambiente de TIC aberto, seguro, estável, acessível e pacífico. Reiteramos a necessidade de uma abordagem abrangente e equilibrada para o desenvolvimento e a segurança das TIC, inclusive o avanço técnico, o desenvolvimento de negócios, a salvaguarda da segurança dos Estados e dos interesses públicos e do respeito ao direito à privacidade dos indivíduos. Endossamos o plano de ação de contra-terrorismo do BRICS para a implementação da estratégia de contra-terrorismo adotado por nossos conselheiros da Segurança Nacional, que visa implementar a estratégia de contra-terrorismo e define a abordagem e ações dos países do BRICS para a cooperação do combate ao terrorismo. Chegando ao fim, quero dizer umas palavras sobre cooperação econômica e financeira para o desenvolvimento sustentável. Observamos com satisfação as discussões realizadas na reunião anual da Assembleia de Governadores do novo Banco de Desenvolvimento e aguardamos a segunda estratégia geral do banco para 2022-26. Reconhecemos o papel do novo Banco de Desenvolvimento como vital para enfrentar as consequências econômicas e de saúde da pandemia e encorajamos NBD a explorar a possibilidade de financiar mais projetos de infraestrutura social, incluindo aqueles que usam tecnologias digitais. Instamos também o banco a aprimorar seu papel na mobilização de capital privado, bem como a realizar mais empreendimentos de confinanciamento com outros bancos multilaterais e agências. Aguardamos a mudança do banco para sua sede permanente em Xangai e a abertura do escritório regional do NDB na Índia em 2021. Saudamos a conclusão bem-sucedida do quarto teste do arranjo contingente de reservas e apoiamos o trabalho para melhorar a estrutura de coordenação entre o ACR e o FMI. Apoyamos a Conferencia Internacional sobre Concurrencia do BRICS a ser realizada na China em novembro de 2021 e na Índia em 2023. Terminando o relatório, quero agradecer os organizadores pelo seu interesse aos temas da cooperação dos países do BRICS e desejar o êxito a todos os participantes. Obrigado.
Muito obrigado. Большое спасибо. Thank you very much, Mr. Yuri Lezgintsev, for your speech. Now, I would like to introduce and invite Dr. Chen Peijie, Consul General of China in São Paulo, for your statement. Consul General, please, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Bruce. My dear colleagues, distinguished professors and ladies and gentlemen and friends, good morning. It's a pleasure for me to be invited again to attend the BRICS conference hosted by the University of Sao Paulo. And this is the second time that we are gathered together by this way to exchange views on BRICS cooperation. At present, the COVID-19 pandemic is still unfolding worldwide. The economic recovery process is difficult and told to us. And international relations are going through profound changes. Focusing on the theme of cooperation and consensus in the rearrangement of global relations, this conference brings together experts from BRICS countries to exchange views on various topics, which is of practical significance for building consensus, strengthening cooperation, and enhancing the role of BRICS mechanism. For 5 consecutive years, USP has unremittingly carried out research and exchanges in this regard, despite the challenges of the pandemic and other difficulties, and contributed with academic strength to the BRICS cooperation. Hereby, I would like to pay a special contribute to your efforts. I wish the conference continued success. Openness, inclusiveness, mutual benefit, and win-win are the core spirits of BRICS. Cooperation and consensus are the core elements of its practice. This year marks the 20th anniversary of the creation of the concept of BRICS. The BRICS cooperation has gone through 15 years development. In the process of strengthening consensus and cooperation, the BRICS and its vitality have been continuously enhanced. BRICS has become the important force for promoting global solidarity against the COVID-19, protecting human life and health, the important force for maintaining the practice of true multilateralism and safeguarding international fairness and justice, the importance for facilitating world economic recovery and global common development, and the important force for deepening exchanges and mutual learning among civilizations. In terms of political security cooperation and global governance, the connection has become closer, consensus has been broader, role has been more constructive. The BRICS has been very active in raising the voices and presenting opinions and proposals on global peace and development. During this year, within the framework of BRICS, the meetings of foreign ministers, senior representatives for security, and the deputy foreign ministers' consultation on Middle East affairs all reached a broad consensus and reaffirmed the commitment to multilateralism. And important results have achieved, such as the BRICS joint statement on strengthening and reforming a multilateral system, and the BRICS Counter-Terrorism Action Plan adopted during the New Delhi summit. In terms of pragmatic cooperation, there has been expanded areas and enhanced influence. From 2000 to 2020, the share of BRICS countries in global trade increased from 8.3% to 17.5%. Since the Moscow summit, the 5 countries have paid special attention to cooperation in the field of a digital economy and sustainable development. The Innovation Center for BRICS Partnership on New Industrial Revolution launched in Xiamen, China at the end of last year, which will strongly push forward the BRICS cooperation in areas such as digitalization, industrialization, and innovation. China has hosted several BRICS events such as the Forum of Partnership on New Industrial Revolution, the Forum on Future Network Innovation, and the Women Innovation Contest. BRICS tourism ministers and energy ministers meetings, as well as the Digital Health Summit, were held. The agreement on the cooperation of BRICS remote sensing satellite statistics was signed, and the new development bank had 3 new member countries. All these achievements showed that the practical cooperation is making stable strides forwards. In terms of people-to-people and cultural exchange, dialogues and interaction are getting deeper, providing best practices for mutual learning among world civilizations. Think tank seminars, cultural ministers' meeting, high-level media forum, and film festivals are improving consensus and mutual understanding. Each of our 5 countries has its own cultural highlights. The distinct cultural elements, such as the Chinese language and the traditional medicine, Brazilian soccer, Bollywood film, Russian ballet, and South African wine, have helped building a solid bridge among our peoples, generating greater support for our partnership. In terms of combating COVID-19, we tide over these tough times through solidarity and cooperation, and adopt a science-based approach to reject any attempt to politicize the situation. Public health has become a new priority of BRICS cooperation. More events have been held in this regard, such as the special meeting of BRICS foreign ministers, video conference for senior health officials and traditional medicine seminars. The BRICS countries supported each other, shared experiences, and accelerated vaccine cooperation, and unanimously opposed the attempts to politicize the pandemic and the origin tracing issue, and called for fighting the pandemic with a scientific and a cooperative attitude. The voice of justice strengthens the force for the promotion of international anti-epidemic cooperation and building of a global community of health for all. In the current international situation, and the BRICS at its mid-stage of the second golden decade, how can BRICS develop itself and participate in the rearrangement of global relations? President Xi Jinping once said, BRICS countries rise together and share a common destiny. We are not only a community of closely related interests, but also a community of common actions that moves forward hand in hand. At the New Delhi summit, President Xi pointed out that we must strengthen public health cooperation in the spirit of solidarity, strengthen international cooperation on vaccines in the spirit of equitable access for all, strengthen economic cooperation in the spirit of mutual benefit and win-win, strengthen political and security cooperation in the spirit of fairness and justice, and strengthen people-to-people and cultural exchanges in the spirit of mutual learning. This is China's proposal for the development of BRICS, in which creating consensus and deepening cooperation has always been the core elements. Therefore, 1. We need to take the opportunity of combating the pandemic to deepen public health cooperation among BRICS countries. We should work together to build a global community of health for all by taking science-based attitude in tracing the origin and by promoting fair distribution of vaccines, especially by making continued contribution in the improvement of the accessibility of vaccines among developing countries. Like I fully agree, share with the view expressed by Yuri. China has established the BRICS Vaccine R&D Center to help bridge the vaccine gap. To date, China has provided more than 1.5 billion doses of finished and bulk vaccines to the international community. Besides $100 million donation to COVAX, China will donate additional 100 million doses of vaccines to developing countries by the end of this year. 2, we need to fully implement the strategy for BRICS Economic Partnership 2025 and the UN 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. We should work to promote open and innovation growth and green and low carbon transformation while paying attention to the special needs of developing countries. We should encourage technology innovation based on artificial intelligence and 5G, making the digital economy a special advantage for BRICS countries. China proposed to host a BRICS high-level meeting on climate change and a BRICS forum on big data for sustainable development. Next year, China is going to host, among other events, a forum on the development of industrial, internet, and digital manufacturing. China also announced another $3 billion in international aid in the next 3 years to support developing countries' COVID-19 responses, as well as their economic and social recovery, building a global community of shared development. 3, we need to firmly uphold the true multilateralism. 50 years ago, on October 25th, in recognition that the restoration of the lawful rights of the People's Republic of China was essential for the UN cause, the 26th session of the United Nations General Assembly adopted Resolution 2758 with an overwhelming majority. Over the past 50 years, China has comprehensively participated in the UN affairs and with concrete actions fulfilled the purposes and the principles of the UN Charter and served as the important builder of world peace, the biggest contributor to global development, the firm defender of international order, and the provider of public products. Since its establishment, the BRICS has all along adhered to openness, inclusiveness, and win-win cooperation, making itself an important part of the multilateralism practice. In order to revitalize multilateralism and make it the important guarantee for world peace and security, we need to safeguard the UN-centered international system and the international order underpinned by international laws, abandon the zero-sum game and the Cold War mentality so as to carry out dialogues and cooperation on the basis of equality and mutual respect. We need to consolidate the BRICS strategic partnership, support each other on issues concerning our respective core interests, and jointly safeguard our sovereignty, security, and development interests. We need to better coordinate our positions on major international and regional issues, send out the even bigger collective voice of BRICS countries, enhance the voice of developing countries, advance democratization of international relations, and jointly safeguard universal security, share development achievements, and put the destiny of the world in our own hands. 4, We need to continuously promote mutual learning and consolidate the public opinion foundation for BRICS cooperation. China proposed setting up a BRICS alliance for vocational education to organize vocational skills competitions and create a platform for exchanges and cooperation among the vocational colleges and business of our 5 countries. China will host a BRICS seminar on governance and the forum on people-to-people and cultural exchanges, and open an online training course for media professionals from 5 countries. Next February, a very important event will be hosted in China, which is the Beijing Olympic and the Paralympic Winter Games. This will be a global sports event as well as a great opportunity for mutual learning. Looking forward to welcoming athletes from all BRICS countries to Beijing and get excellent results. The development of the BRICS mechanism has also been reflected in bilateral cooperations among the members. For example, between China and Brazil. Brazil is the first Latin American country with a trade volume surpassing $100 billion with China, and the strong momentum was not affected by the pandemic. The trade volume increased by 40% year-on-year from January to September this year. The two sides worked together to fight the pandemic. Up to now, China has provided Brazil with 140 million doses and more than 4,000 liters finished and booked vaccines, and cooperates with Brazil in vaccine development and production. Cooperation between Sinovac and the Butantan Institute of Sao Paulo is widely known. The Secretary of International Relations and the Secretary of Tourism of Sao Paulo State jointly published an article entitled, "Thank You, China." My Consulate General, in partnership with the USP Confucius Institute and the Secretariat of Education of Sao Paulo State, organized 2 short video contests, Hello China and Discovering China. Brazilian teenagers actively participated in and told their personal stories regarding China. The State Secretary of Sports and I jointly published an article regarding the Beijing Winter Olympics. I signed a cooperation agreement with the Secretary of Education and had online communications with the Sao Paulo Legislative Assembly members and dozens of mayors. Bilateral cooperations with other members are also fruitful. For example, in May of this year, the presidents of China and Russia witnessed together the groundbreaking of China-Russia nuclear energy cooperation project. And the anti-epidemic cooperation between China, South Africa, China, India are continually to advance. All bilateral partnership has also strongly promoted the in-depth development of BRICS cooperation. In my conclusion, the international situation is undergoing profound changes, but people's expectations for peace and development remain unchanged. The voices for solidarity and cooperation remain unchanged, and the lasting vitality of BRICS cooperation remain unchanged. Next year, China will take over the presidency of the BRICS. China is fully confident to make it a success and inject a new vitality. Facing the rearrangement of global relations, let's wish that the BRICS countries, based on the BRICS spirit of openness, inclusiveness, mutual benefit, and win-win, boost confidence, deepen consensus, and expand cooperation. Let's wish as well that the BRICS countries will tackle risks and challenges, push for the long-term stable and sound development of the BRICS mechanisms, mechanism featured by cooperation of a higher quality and a stronger resilience, and make the BRICS contribution to the building of a community with a shared future for mankind. And I also wish that the coordinator, Professor Paulo, and the Center for BRICS Studies of the University of Sao Paulo will continue to make even greater contribution to this important cooperation. I thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Consul General Chen Peijie. Now I would like to welcome Mrs. Tinyiko Kumalo, Consul General of South Africa in Sao Paulo, which we are very delighted that you joined us for the first time in our conference. We are very happy with that, and please welcome. The floor is totally yours.
Thank you very much, Bruce. Bon dia, boa tarde to all the colleagues and distinguished guests. And thank you very much, Chair, for the warm welcome. And firstly, let me thank the University of Sao Paulo for hosting this 5th BRICS conference. Your conference theme, Cooperation and Consensus in the Rearrangement of Global Relations, is a very valid reflection on the present character of global affairs, as well as the arrangement of the global order results from increasingly volatile global processes that continue to reshape traditional notions of unipolarity. This so-called unipolarity was seen as a success of the Western world view, its institutions, and models of governance. It is important to point out that Africa, freshly emerging from the post-colonial recovery, did not feature as a beneficiary of the changing world affairs. Developing countries were forced to accept the rules of the dominant Western world view when joining the international system and structures, even though these rules entrenched the power base of the global north. For South Africa and Africa, we aim to redefine our relationship with the world based on our terms. South Africa's participation in BRICS continues to solidify our strategic cooperation and carries with it a valuable contribution, both directly and indirectly, to our priorities of a better South Africa, a better Africa, and a better world. Our country's place in the changing global order is inseparable from its broader African and developing world context. This is a vital feature of South Africa's view of progressive internationalism, which rightfully entails opposition to the continuation of the legacy of global imperialism, colonialism, racism, the dominance of the global north over the south, as well as the global structural inequality and poverty. As BRICS member states, we have a common history of struggle against imperialism, colonialism, exploitation, and underdevelopment. This history distinguished the BRICS countries from the traditional Western powers. As BRICS, there was a recognition very early on that we have similar challenges as emerging and developing nations, as well as shared interests and common ambitions. In South Africa, we refer to the triple challenges of inequality, poverty, and unemployment. As government, among other processes to improve our developmental needs, we have set in motion processes to respond to the pandemic, grow our economy, expand our infrastructure. Other BRICS member states are dealing with similar challenges, albeit with their own unique circumstances. South Africa's engagement in BRICS aims to contribute to the future direction of BRICS, to strengthen intra-BRICS relations and mutually beneficial cooperation across all pillars of cooperation. This approach is supported by our National Development Plan, which recommends that South Africa's global foreign policy position positioning should commence with establishing greater leverage in its multiple international affiliations, especially in BRICS and the Global South. This approach brings the necessary gains and benefits, particularly in the post-COVID economic recovery phase, where it could serve and enhance intra-BRICS economic interaction and cooperation. As a country, our national interest is to focus on BRICS cooperation that provides tangible benefits for South Africans through science, technology, and innovation, energy, health, education cooperation, as well as through BRICS financing for infrastructure development, capacity building, research, educational and skilling, trade, investment, and tourism opportunities. For example, since we joined BRICS, our trade balance with most BRIC countries has switched from deficits to surpluses. The value of our exports to our BRICS partners are now larger than our other partners. South Africa's trade with our BRICS partners has increased from 268 billion in 2011 to 540 billion in 2020, even growing a little during the pandemic. However, we still have work to do to reach our target of 500 billion of intra-BRICS trade, as it stood at 360 billion in 2020. For South Africa, it is important that any post-COVID recovery plans enhance opportunities for market access and facilitate market interlinkages, promote mutual trade and investment, and as well create a business-friendly environment for investors and entrepreneurs in all BRICS countries. In this way, we will be able to enhance and diversify trade and investment cooperation that supports value addition among the BRICS countries. We have also been encouraging our BRICS partners to increase investment in Africa, particularly in the manufacturing sector. As such, investors from the BRIC countries are now realizing considerable benefits by investing in Africa, as trade across Africa is opened through the operationalization of the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. Tourism is also an important driver of South Africa's economy, and our BRICS partners were a growing source market before the devastating impact of COVID pandemic on this sector. As we continue to center African issues and interests on the BRICS agenda, our BRICS partners have thus been demonstrating their commitments to Africa's own policy priorities, particularly voicing their support for the African solutions to African problems, silencing of guns, and Africa Agenda 2063. Indeed, BRICS also continue to show a commitment to addressing issues that face the developing world. Chair, India's theme of BRICS 15 summit could not be more relevant as it aims on strengthening intra-BRICS cooperation, build on continuity, consolidation, and consensus. Also, India's priorities for BRICS in 2021 have resonated soundly with what we as a country seek to achieve, namely reform of the multilateral system, counter-terrorism cooperation, the application of digital and technological solutions for achievement of sustainable development goals, and enhancing people-to-people exchanges. One of the key drivers for the formation of BRICS was the need for the reform of the multilateral system. The BRICS partnership represents a powerful coalition of countries that ensures the centrality of multilateralism, which pronounces itself unambiguously against unilateralism, protectionism, and populism. This is the reason why we will constantly and consistently always call for respect of international law and reform global order that is more equitable, inclusive, and representative of the global realities. We are therefore pleased that the BRICS Ministers of Foreign Affairs and International Relations adopted a standalone statement on strengthening and reforming of multilateral systems during their meeting of June 2021. Our collective joint statement on reform was a clear message on the shared values and common purpose of BRICS countries to see a fair, just, inclusive, equitable, and representative multipolar international system. The current global environment is dominated by the response to the COVID-19 pandemic, which has affected all aspects of life, from the global economy to international trade, travel, and the functioning of international relations. Notwithstanding these challenges to the planned program of work under the Indian chairship, around 150 meetings were held across all pillars of cooperation, including successful virtual 13th BRICS Summit. As all of us have suffered during the COVID pandemic with the loss of lives and livelihoods, South Africa is also grateful for the financial and material assistance of BRICS countries towards our pandemic emergency response. The strength of our partnership is, however, demonstrated by how BRICS cooperation in all areas responded to the pandemic. Our ministers of health engaged early on in the pandemic and exchanged information on national responses and best practices in the treatment and prevention. Our ministers of science and innovation quickly mobilized a BRICS science, technology, and innovation framework programs in response to COVID-19 and emphasized the importance of research and development in the development of vaccines and to ensure affordable access to quality and effective healthcare. During the 13th BRICS Summit, leaders also agreed to deepen cooperation to fight COVID-19, mobilize the political support and financial resources needed to respond to future pandemic preparedness. This includes the early operationalization of the virtual BRICS Vaccine Research and Development Center and a BRICS integrated early warning system to forecast future outbreaks of infectious disease. The building of vaccine development and manufacturing capacity in South Africa is a strategic priority to strengthen both health and industrial capacity. During the 13th BRICS Summit, South Africa and India also called on all BRICS members to explicitly support TRIPS waiver and negotiations that will result in a massive and rapid expansion of production of vaccines across the world. For South Africa, it is critical that BRICS cooperation move from strategies to concrete deliverables that benefit our people in a practical sense. This is demonstrated by adoption of several action plans during the 13th BRICS Summit, including an action plan for the strategy of BRICS economic partnership, an action plan for agricultural cooperation of BRICS countries, a BRICS action plan for innovation cooperation, as well as counter-terrorism strategy action plan. Implementing the strategy for BRICS economic partnership is also critical. It is obvious that to fast-track our economic recovery, trade and investment ties between BRICS countries must be strengthened. Some of our BRICS members have managed to weather the storm and are projected for strong economic rebound. It is critical that we harness our BRICS relationship to assist the recovery in all members. The new development bank is one of the biggest success stories of BRICS cooperation. They rapidly identified the need to support BRICS countries in addressing the health and economic consequences of the COVID-19 pandemic. Like other BRICS countries, South Africa received emergency assistance loan of 1 billion to assist in our healthcare response to the pandemic and in providing a social safety net, and also to alleviate the economic impact of the disease containment measure on vulnerable individuals. South Africa also received a further 1 billion loan to support its post-pandemic economic recovery. We are delighted that the bank's expansion to the new members will create pathway for it to be a global development finance institution, extending its reach to all regions of the world. The 13th BRICS Summit welcomed the expansion of membership of the bank to include Bangladesh, Uruguay, and United Arab Emirates. Negotiations with a potential African member are at an advanced stage, and we look forward to an announcement in this regard. One of the priorities of the Indian chairship in 2021 has been to strengthen people-to-people cooperation. We need to spread the BRICS story far and wide to further enhance the mutual understanding and traditional friendship among our people. For South Africa, our participation in BRICS is aimed at delivering concrete benefits to our people in our communities and must therefore be owned by our people. We want our own academia, our own thinkers, our own civil society, our own people-to-people contact to determine what BRICS is going to be about in the future. South Africa therefore welcomes engagement such as this conference, and we appreciate the opportunity afforded to us to deliberate on South Africa's priorities for BRICS. In the 11 years since South Africa joined BRICS, our membership has substantially advanced our national interest. Being a member of BRICS has enhanced our position as an important emerging economy. It has given us access to policy and technical expertise of larger and established economies, as well as access to the support of National Development Bank. It has strengthened our activism on the global stage, particularly around reform of multilateral institutions. We have benefited from being part of a collective voice, striving to advance a world order based on mutual respect and the equal sovereignty of nations. In conclusions, BRICS remains a critical and strategic partner for South Africa. It is so not only in the vision to shaping a new international order, but in delivering concrete benefits from cooperation to improve the lives of our people in a literal sense. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Consul General Tinyiko Kumalo. And we are very, very delightful with your acceptance of the invitation. And we wish you a successful work in São Paulo, which has begun this year. And well, now I would like to proceed to the last speech. India holds the chairmanship of BRICS Summit in 2021, and that's the reason I would like to invite Mr. Amit Kumar Mishra, Consul General of India in São Paulo, for the last but definitely not least speech of our panel. Consul General, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Bruce. It's a pleasure to be part of this event. Let me start by also thanking my colleagues from other member countries for their wonderful speeches covering diverse aspects of our cooperation and the value it brings to our national priorities. So it's really hard to speak after them because they have, between all of them, they have almost covered everything that I had thought of in my speech. but as you said that, India is holding the chair of BRICS this year. So I would try to outline our priorities and the things that we believe we were able to achieve as the chair of BRICS this year. As you all know that the 13th summit, the BRICS summit was held virtually under India's leadership. We had participation of all our leaders. This was third time that India was hosting this summit after 2012 and 2016. As our South African colleague pointed out, the theme for India's chairship this year was BRICS at 15, intra-BRICS cooperation for continuity, consolidation, and consensus. And that those 4 C's summarize, we are kind of at a stage where we can stock take how far we have come in last 15 years. And it also reflects India's its own approach to the founding principles of, I would say, BRICS that are based on consensus and continuity. Now, we all know that BRICS works on 3 different pillars. In general, you have political and security part of it, where we engage in a dialogue to on global and regional security issues to promote global peace. Then there is an economic and financial vertical, where we try to collaborate in areas like trade, agriculture, infrastructure, banking, and all. And then you have the third one, the culture and people-to-people aspects. Keeping these 3 pillars in mind, India had outlined 4 priorities for its chairship. One, and the first and foremost, is the reform of multilateral institutions. This is something that has brought all 5 countries together, and we continue to work towards this shared goal. The global architecture, the global institutions have to reflect today's world. They cannot be stuck in the architecture that existed decades ago when they were created. We see this and we say this for United Nations. We feel this for the financial institutions of World Bank and IMF, and to some extent you would say even in trade side, World Trade Organization. And we have seen similar disputes or similar non-reflection of global reality in even organizations like World Health Organization. So we have to work together to achieve this priority. Second, obviously, the terrorism is one of the foremost challenges being faced by the mankind. So working together to combat terrorism. And third, as we work to achieve sustainable development goals, use more and more digital and technological solutions for that. And fourth one, to expand people-to-people cooperation. Despite the challenges of COVID, as chair, we feel glad that we were able to hold the entire spectrum of meetings. I think more than 150 meetings being planned, almost 21 of them at ministerial level, covering an extraordinarily diverse areas of cooperation, be it foreign affairs, national security, finance, trade, industry, labor and employment, agriculture, energy, health, traditional medicines, environment, education. The spectrum of issues that we deal as a group is really extraordinary. It's it's not comparable by any other grouping in the world. In his remarks at the summit on 9th September, our Prime Minister Narendra Modi highlighted some key achievements from our presidency of the BRICS group. For the first time, we were able to hold a digital health summit. Now, considering the backdrop of pandemic, this was a really big achievement. And as one of our colleagues mentioned, that the group's functioning and the entire world global politics interaction between nations is going to be shaped by this pandemic and the response, and how we should not be hit by something of this scale so badly again. That's where we have to come together. On the issue of multilateral reforms, this was a huge achievement. First standalone statement where our ministers could meet and come together with a joint statement on multilateral reform. Similarly, the counter-terrorism action plan. So the priorities that we had in mind when we started this year as the chair, those translated into concrete action plans and declarations. Then we have this wonderful agreement on remote sensing satellite constellation. There is action plans for agricultural cooperation, innovation side, alliance for there's an agricultural research platform, and then they talk about the virtual BRICS Vaccine Research and Development Center. We are very comfortable with what we have been able to achieve in this year of presidency of the group. And looking for the future, Prime Minister did mention that BRICS countries have a responsibility to work together to help world leave this pandemic and its economic and social impacts behind, and to emerge as stronger together. So in this context, he called upon all our member countries to work with the motto of build back resiliently, innovatively, credibly, and sustainably. To elaborate it a bit on more, accelerate the build back by enhancing speed and accessibility of the vaccination, create resilience by diversifying the pharma and vaccine production capacities beyond the developed world, fostering innovation by using digital tools for public good, ensuring reforms of multilateral institutions to actually enhance their credibility. And lastly, promoting sustainable development by articulating a common BRICS voice on environment and climate issues. How BRICS contributes to our national priorities and how our countries have benefited. A lot of our colleagues have spoken at length, so I will not touch upon it. I'll speak on, my own impressions about what you often keep on hearing about. Is BRICS still relevant? First, if you look at the numbers, it's actually, someone should laugh why you even ask that question. Together between these 5 countries, you have 40% of global population, 25% of global GDP, 16 to 17% of global trade, 30% of land area. You pick any parameter. In the current context, if you're looking at COVID vaccination rate, you look at how much of global vaccine production is coming from the BRICS member countries, how much percentage of global totally vaccinated people exist in this group, you will get your answer. But you still see that since the group started, from the idea being proposed by someone in 2001, or for the first meeting between our foreign ministers in 2006, we have come pretty far. It's 15 years, but every year it's a repeat thing. The Western media will come up with the same kind of commentary where they will say that the group is irrelevant, there are too many differences between member states, and then the worst ones will predict that the group will might disappear, go away. They're not enough to hold this together. You took that and you take that, and then you look at the range of meetings that we have, 150 meetings in a year. That's literally a meeting every second day, and every second week a ministerial meeting, and the diverse range of issues that we do. So I really find it puzzling that people still raise these questions. Obviously there are, when the group was conceptualized or somebody proposed an idea, the idea was the 4 emerging economies, and South Africa joined later. And then with emerging economy, there will be more growth in their political clout and other things. And the growth has obviously been uneven since that. If you look at last 2 decades, China has grown tremendously, and for other countries, it's not at the same pace and not the same size. But what we bring together and why we came together, that was to work towards a more inclusive, equitable, and representative and multipolar international system. That goal has not yet been achieved. We have made progress towards it. But one thing we can say that, BRICS as a group has been a beacon of multilateralism. Something we need a world order based on equality, mutual trust, mutual respect. In that way, BRICS has done a tremendous, has a tremendous success. It continues to be functionally and tangibly beneficial for all many member states. Our leaders attend the summit meetings every year. We have been able to formulate common policies on all key matters of our interest. We have transitioned to issues like transnational security, terrorism, anti-drug working groups. On the financial side, we have been able to create, which our South African colleague rightly said that it's the the rising star of the financial architecture, the new development bank. And before that, I think it was in 2012 Delhi summit that these 2 ideas of a contingency reserve arrangement and a new development bank was proposed. And in just 8-9 years, you have to see how far we have come with, with $100 billion in that capital for this contingency reserve arrangement. And more on, if you look at the NDB, it's probably was the first bank to be coming out of developing world, being conceptualized and put in place by developing countries. It has been able to establish partnerships with other development banks. Now it has reached a mature stage where it's admitting new members. If you look at, if I'm not wrong, this portfolio has diversified. It's more than $30 to $32 billion in different kind of fundings. Its funding is better than any other multilateral lending institution. It does not impose external standards, does not force borrowing countries to agree to conditions where they don't want to. It facilitates lending that saves them from the fluctuations against US dollar. And the most recently, when the real challenge of COVID came, we have seen almost $8 to $9 billion coming from this bank to the member countries to help us. Now, what more can if for me, the NDB itself should be a good enough reason to keep all 5 countries together and working on it. But we have similar success stories across all 20-25 key sectors that we come together and we talk about. I was just looking at to give an idea to people in audience about how frequently and what kind of topics we covered. We just had a look at what the group did last week only. In 21st October, there was a working group on ICT technology. Then on 22nd October, you had the 7th meeting of communication ministers. 27th October, you have technical group meeting of contingency reserve arrangement. 28th, tomorrow we have NSO meeting. Then you have BRICS payment task force. If you look for next month itself, next month you have meetings on urbanization, water forum, first time ever meeting of our water ministers, then ministerial meeting for sports, ministerial meeting for science, technology and innovation. What more can you ask for from a multilateral group? I would conclude here by quoting our foreign minister when he referred to BRICS at 15 years. He portrayed it as a young adult equipped with thoughts shaped and a worldview concretized, and with a growing sense of responsibility. On a personal note, I feel together we are stronger. Together we are able to defend our national interest effectively on multilateral platforms. Together we work better for growth and development of our economies. Together we can fight global challenges like this COVID pandemic better. And together we can work better to improve life for our own people and in the process, the entire humanity. With those words, I would conclude here, and I thank all our member states for extending, complete support for India's chairship, and we will extend similar support to our next chair, China, which takes over next year. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Amit Kumar Mishra, for your remarkable speech, especially on the pandemic situation and post-pandemic situation, and the last message that together we are stronger. It's a value already in BRICS grouping, and it's one of the causes of its success so far. And I would like to thank you, all the top representatives of the BRICS countries here in São Paulo, for participating in this conference, to share your views, achievements, especially during the pandemic, and also willing to cooperate more within BRICS grouping in several areas, both bilateral and multilaterally. And that's why we're here, to foster cooperation among academia, civil society, government, private sector, so on. As Mr. Amit Kumar Mishra said, to make us stronger, strategically articulated, and more prosperous. We hope to strengthen multilateralism, because after all, BRICS grouping always has been a democratic and successful collective construction. And that's the path we move forward towards the next level of cooperation. Unfortunately, we didn't have the opportunity to meet ourselves in person this year, but we hope to have all the conditions to do so next year. So thank you all again for participating in this special session, which became a tradition in the BRICS conference over the years. So thank you for being part of it and build it up together with us. And I wish you success and to keep up the excellent work each one of you has been doing in São Paulo, and I could see over the last years and this year as well. So thank you. The session is closed, and stay sharp for the next panels of our conference in the evening of São Paulo time. Thank you so much.